Hello friends, it's Heidi here. We're going to talk to you today a little bit about squat. So some of you might be squatting out there and not really sure how to set up. So we want to go over the basic things today. We're just going to go over about 5 things that are going to be very important to get you a very, very strong squat. So we want to start off with the bar. So a lot of times, one of the biggest mistakes I see is people will set the bar up too high. So ideally, I tell people to put it kind of right in the middle of their chest. So if you see Devin, this is my husband, look at him over here, setting up to the bar, you'll notice that it's sort of right in the middle of the chest, kind of right at the deltoids. That's an ideal spot. What's going to happen is as it gets heavier, it's going to weigh down on your body more. So you really want to make sure that you're not tiptoeing it out, which is something we often see. And we're kind of lucky at this gym that we have enough pegs. But if you're at a commercial gym, it's going to be a little harder. So you might not have much room to work with. It's better if you put it lower than it is to put it higher. So just make sure that you're keeping it at this level or even a little bit under. When we go to unwrap the bar, when you get under, you want to make sure that that you're getting underneath the bar. So if you see, Devin is underneath and he's just going to stand up with it. Go ahead and put that back down. What you don't want to see is a good morning out of it. So sometimes what happens is people will put their feet back a little too far and then they're bending it out like a good morning. That's going to put a problem on your back and you don't want to do that. If you're going to start loading up some weight, it's going to be very inconvenient for you to do this. So make sure that you get up, sit under, and you stand up with it. Good. Now, go ahead and mark that. Devin's a big guy, so he has to hold a little further out. Ideally, if you might not be as beefy as him, we can bring the grip in a little bit more. The most important thing with the grip is that we're keeping enough tension and tightness here. We don't have these arms flared back, which sometimes you'll see people will lift their elbows really far back. He has them nice and tucked in here, and the lats are really pulled in here. So whatever position you choose, just make sure that it feels nice and tight in this position before you lift it up. So lift up, next step is our step out. So he's going to take 3 steps out. He's going to clear the rack, he's going to open up, and he actually takes 2. I take 3, but he's just so good like that. And you want to get into your position. Let's show them the 3 steps, just so we can have both. So the better is going to be a 2-step like Devin did, but if you're not able to get those 2 steps, it's okay to do 3. So he's going to take a step straight back. He's going to open up, and then he's going to kind of get his foot a little bit situated so they're stable. What you don't want is that you're taking hella steps back. So let's show maybe not a not so good walkout, right? And you just cleared this rack so much. You don't need to clear it that much. You just need enough to clear it and walk back out. All right, so now we have our setup. You're nice and tight here. You've established a nice grip. Everything is set. Next thing we're going to do is making sure you're stacking your pelvis. So one thing we often see is people will squat very tilted out, right? It's like the booty pump, or like in that stripper mode. We do not want that. That's not going to be the best position for you to be strong. Think of tucking your hips under slightly, and then when you descend, the hips will naturally come out in a more strong position. So go ahead and just take that squat for me real quick. And back up. So now you can see, go ahead and take it with it tilted out, okay? And you see how much it sticks out. He actually has a butt wink at the bottom. Butt winks aren't necessarily the worst, but it does indicate that he might be not as tight or not in the best position for his squat. Go ahead and take that squat one more time in a good position. There you go. Stacked. Back down and up. That looks fantastic. So position of the hips are good. We have them nice and stacked. And the most important thing, which might be a little hard to show you here, but is bracing. So bracing really is contracting this part out here all around so that you have like a Coke bottle. If you think of the pressure that's built up in a can, this is going to be nice and tight, right? So he's going to take a breath. You feel that he expanded out really, really well. Show what we see often, which is not a correct breath. All right, we see that chest is elevated. There is nothing expanding here. Go ahead and take that again. Oh, so good. And now do the other way, the bad way. Yeah. So if you find yourself taking a breath and the chest is elevated, we're really not creating any stability or intra-abdominal pressure in this area. So the idea is that if you're wearing a belt, if you like to, you don't have to, but one benefit is he'll take that breath and it's expanded out and created a nice hard area here. So the checklist goes, walk out, tilt the pelvis, take your brace, and then squat. Good, so checklist again, brace, pelvis, squat. Good, one more time, brace, pelvis, squat. Good, and wrap it. So we're gonna go over some fillers or things that we like to include in between your squatting. And I think a lot of times when we talk about health and how your body feels, in powerlifting, sometimes we just like negate all that, right? We don't do a warm up, you don't do a cool down, you're not stretching. But one thing that we love to do at the gym is make everybody feel good, even if they're powerlifting. You know, there's these movements that we should have. Devin's gonna go over 2 fillers that we like to do in between your squatting to make you feel a little better.
Yeah, so the first one's going to be a hip flexor stretch. So you see a common thing where people will get set and they'll drive that hip in. They'll be like, oh, it feels real good right here. But really just driving your femur into the hip capsule. And it's more of like a shearing force in that joint than it is an actual stretch of the hip flexor. So the idea is when we're talking about the squat of that stacked position, we're going to want to get that stacked position to help get that hip flexor going. We're going to have pads. So you do need some pads and a stick. The pads, I recommend starting a little higher, depending, because it's going to give you a little more room to get into your hip flexor. So I'm going to show you this from the side so you can see, but I'm going to also show it from the front so you can see what I'm actually doing. So this heel is actually got to go against the wall. So eventually I'll put it against this rack so you can see. But the higher the position, I get my knee, my hip, rib cage stacked. I'll place this in front and I'm reaching, but I'm not leaning with it. We want this front foot roughly around 90 degrees at this knee. And so from here, this just goes forward. I tuck my hips and I feel that stretch. What I want to avoid doing is leaning into it. So we hold this position, reach. And that's it. Now as we're doing this, I'll turn the other way. And we get set and put my heel into this rack. And from here, the difference is now I'm set and I'm driving my heel back. And that driving that heel back will really start to trigger that hip flexor doing some work. So we just want to focus on our breathing. It shouldn't be like a max out or anything like that. It's just hanging out, letting that go. You'll find out kind of warm up the quad, get it going. I like to do these between my warm-up sets. So do a warm-up, do that, especially if I'm squatting heavy. I definitely want no part of doing it when I'm maxing out. So it kind of does fry them up a little bit. But yeah, do them for your warm-ups, in your warm-ups, and you feel a little bit better with that. All right, so the next one will be a quadruped, so hands and knees, leg raise. Nothing fancy here. We're gonna get set. We do want the knees outside the hips, and I'll show why in a second. So from here, I'm gonna put my hands under my shoulders, push the floor away, knees under my hip, or outside my hips, but relatively underneath. I don't want them up, and I don't want them too far back. Over here, push the floor away, step out. Then from here, I'm gonna keep that brace position, and I'm gonna try to raise that leg. So I get set, and back down. Now, initially you might feel a cramp in your butt. Don't worry about it. All right, so we'll be there, and that's the idea. So, and back down. Now, what I'm talking about from the front is if I don't shift my knees out and I bring them in and then I put my leg out, what happens is I get over this leg, and then from here raising it is easy. Or I can just shift over. We want to avoid that. So we want to go wide, we'll step out, then from here I can't really shift, and it's much more challenging. So with these 2 moves, you can kind of get the whole leg going, get your hip flexor into your quad, and the leg raise, get your glute, the hip capsule joint itself. That's a little like bonus for helping you squat, get moving right.